Well, I'm Boris. I'm the co-founder and chief operating officer of Papa and Barkley and Papa Select. We're a licensed cannabis brand here in California. Our mission, that's the best thing to start off with. Our mission is to unlock the power of cannabis to improve people's lives. We were founded by Adam Grossman, who's our CEO and now chairman of our board, and our founder. He started off as actually an entrepreneur, an investor in the industry, thinking he was going to put some capital with some investors behind some brands and maybe help them operationally. In the middle of this, he was also the caretaker for his elderly parents. So they're both nearing their 90s, and his father suffered from stenosis. And it got to the point that his father's back gave out, and they over-medicated him, put him on so much medication that he couldn't get out of bed. They put him on hospice. And Adam, in the middle of all of his entrepreneurial activities and his business dealings, came back home, tried to help his father, thinking, this might be the end. And in an act of desperation, he bought some cannabis on the black market from an old friend in Massachusetts. And he found a recipe online. He found a crock pot, bought some essential oils and some coconut oil, and made the first batch of a topical that night. Next day, as Adam would tell it, he put some balm on his father's back. Within an hour, he had him out of bed and stretching a little bit. Within a few days, he was walking. And within a few months, they took this 90-year-old man off of hospice. This is a powerful story. It shows the healing powers of cannabis and its ability to improve people's lives. And after that, Adam was on a mission, right? So Adam, he stopped looking to invest in other companies. He realized he had something special here, and he came to California, and that's where he met our other co-founder, Guy Rocourt, and eventually came together with myself. And we brought this wonderful topical product, which is the number one selling balm in California, to the market. It's our 1-to-3 balm. It continues to be the original formula. The only thing that was changed was we added some CBD when Adam came here, which definitely helps with inflammation. We also introduced a CBD-rich version. But these products were the first ones of their kind to be batch tested for a topical product, and they're fully created with a solventless process. So unlike, in these days, it was 2015, 2016, in those days, most people looked at topicals as an afterthought. At cannabis as wellness was a thing, but topicals were definitely not a serious cannabis product. They weren't batch tested. There were no test results printed on these products whatsoever. And most importantly, when I say they were an afterthought, people would have some leftover extract. They'd throw it into a lotion they bought off the shelf. They'd throw it on the shelf of a dispensary. It would have 50 to 100 milligrams in a 50 ml jar, and that just wasn't potent enough. So what was special about ours was we did a full flower solventless infusion into coconut oil, and our bombs are 10 to 15 milligrams per ml, meaning a jar of ours will have anywhere from 400 to 600 total milligrams of cannabinoids at different ratios of THC and CBD. And that whole flower infusion includes the plant lipids, the waxes, the things that traditional extraction takes out of the cannabis plant, we keep in, because that actually, through plant medicine, helps you in a holistic entourage effect to bring the cannabinoids, the terpenes from that flower, as well as all the other phytonutrients into a topical. So my personal cannabis story starts with recreational use. Going into college, many people start early on in their teens. I actually was nervous too. Cannabis does have some sort of an effect on a young mind. And so 18, 19 is when I started experimenting. And I was just a recreational user for the longest time. In fact, for the longest time, I thought the medical use of cannabis was a hoax, right? I thought it was just a gambit to get cannabis legalized. It wasn't until when I was 26. I've always had psoriasis. Since the time I was in my teenage years, I had psoriasis. But when I was 26, at a very young age, I started having extreme joint pain. So to the point where I couldn't walk. I was a former high school tennis champion. But at this point, I couldn't walk. I couldn't sleep in a bed because my back hurt so much I had to sleep on the floor. And I would smoke THC cannabis, and it would relieve some pain, but I would still have inflammation. I still would be very stiff. It wasn't giving me the relief that I was needing, and that further led me think that, hey, maybe this isn't a real thing. And it wasn't until I came to California in 2012 and I tried Cannatonic, which was a 2-to-1 CBD to THC strain. Very nice apple terpene on it. And I had about a quarter ounce of that because somebody recommended to me. They knew I was dealing with some arthritic problems. And what I eventually got diagnosed with was psoriatic arthritis. And some people that have psoriasis, they develop psoriatic arthritis. And after 2 days of just smoking on a quarter ounce of Cannatonic, I was able to step up on my tiptoes, which I hadn't done in a couple of years because the pain had been so bad. I tried to play tennis and I couldn't even hold a racket. And then, after a few weeks of using CBD, changing my diet, just smoking on CBD was bringing down my inflammation, and that sent me down the rabbit hole. I read Jack Herrera, I read the Pop Book by Julie Holland. I started reading anything I could that talked about the history of cannabis, the history of prohibition, the history of the medical use of cannabis. And I learned that we knew about CBD even in the 70s. I mean, it's not an absolutely new molecule, but I learned all about the restrictions on the study of cannabis as a medicine, and it really turned me from not just a non-believer, it turned me into an advocate because I saw what it was doing for me. I eventually started the Iowa Hemp Association. I worked as the executive director of Iowa Normal, and while I still had a business on the side running an international engineering company with my brother, I started traveling around Iowa, doing town halls about medical cannabis, CBD, and THC, and how cannabinoids can help so many autoimmune diseases. And I personally started supplying CBD to about 30 families at one point with children who had epilepsy or some kind of seizure disorders. We would go to Colorado. We also had suppliers in California. It was a bit of a gray area. The national, we had passed the law in 2014 in Iowa that allowed people to possess CBD, but there was no mechanism to actually produce it in Iowa, nor was there a mechanism to bring it from out of state in a legal way. There was a lot of snake oil salesmen online that were selling products that had no CBD in them, but they were claiming that it had CBD in them. So we brought lab-tested, full plant extracts from Colorado and California to families in Iowa, and we saw, it's one thing to see what a plant can do for you and how a certain remedy can help you in your life, but some of the things we saw with what this plant can do to people that have serious seizure disorders, things like Parkinson's and tremors, things like even MLS, it's not a cure by any means, but the symptom relief that it can bring, and especially with seizure disorders, it's a non-toxic way to help people that no other medication has worked for. We worked with children as young as 2 years old to as old as 26, and it didn't work for everyone. 40% of people it doesn't work for, but the 60% that did benefit from cannabinoid therapy, you could see cognitive differences, you could see mental differences. I mean, it's the type of differences you see that change your life. You change the entire mission of what you want to do, because something that is this benign but can also help you so much and help people that truly need help. It's not, I had pain, and arthritis is nothing to be joked about. It's something that is chronic, and it caused anxiety, and cannabis can help with all of that, and it does help me with all of that. But when you see the kind of change in quality of life that it can bring to people that are really struggling, and then you realize the horrible reasons why this plant has been prohibited, many of the racist reasons early on why it was prohibited, and the fact that there's an opportunity there to go out there and create amazing products. That's how I got into the cannabis industry. So it was from advocacy in Iowa, and then I started traveling around consulting about sourcing for CBD and hemp. Finally created strong SOPs for multiple companies that I consulted with in the national cannabis industry, from California to Oregon to Colorado. And eventually I found my partners, Guy and Adam, here at Pop and Barkley when they were just starting. And they had this mission to unlock the power of cannabis to improve people's lives, to bring what Adam had done for his father to as many people as possible. And when we came together, it was like a triad that clicked. Guy's an amazing formulator, has 20 years of experience in cannabis and formulations and products. Adam is an amazing entrepreneur with this incredible life story and an amazing experience with his father that led to this realization about cannabis, and is also, by the way, lifelong cannabis user, just like myself and Guy. And then myself coming in with my own personal story of advocacy, helping these families that were in truly desperate situations and seeing the power of this plant to improve people's lives. We came in with a mission, and we created some topical products that quickly became some of the best in the market. Our tincture products, also whole plant, infusions, non-solvents. We don't use BHO. We don't use alcohol. We don't use CO2. We have nothing against those processes. They have a place in the market, but we hold ourselves to a higher standard. We call it best in class, and that means that we have the most potent natural medicine from Mother Nature in the cannabis plant. You can see the fruit of this plant in its trichomes, and when we see those trichomes, all we're trying to do is collect them. There's 15 to 30% cannabinoids in a flower, and there's no need to use chemical solvents and then have to drain the chemical solvents out of that in order to get efficacy out of these plants. In fact, for thousands of years, the traditional ways of getting cannabis into potency was creating hash or creating sifted trichomes or washed trichomes and compacting them into medicinal and adult use uses. So we try to stay true to that legacy and not manipulate the plant more than it needs to be, because what Mother Nature has gifted us is an amazing thing, and we need to, we strive to find the best ways to use it naturally. Yeah, if the question is what is the difficulty in educating the public, I came to California to start Pop on Barkley with Guy and Adam back in the beginning of 2016. And that was right before this pivotal election where Trump took over, and there's a lot of things going on in the country, and this is having come back after 4 years of trying to convince a very conservative legislature in Iowa to pass at least some hemp law, and they'd passed restrictive medical cannabis laws, and it was an uphill battle. We live in a bubble here in California. We're very blessed because we were the first state since 1996 to create compassionate use for medical reasons. And because of that, there's a culture here that accepts cannabis. It is an essential business in a time of a pandemic, right? That's not true across the rest of the country. I had to meet with people that all our politics didn't exactly meet at one. But one thing that I can say is that, and this is not just Iowa, this is the rest of the Midwest, these are places that people that work for a living, that have farms, that work in agriculture, and cannabis at the end of the day, no matter what you think of it from a drug perspective or from a medical perspective, it is an agricultural commodity that there was no reason to exclude it from the repertoire of things that farms should be able to work with. So that's where I found common ground in the Midwest. I would do, and most importantly, you got to meet people where they are. Right? You don't come and start swinging the flag of, smoking in their faces and having joints rolled around the streets. You come in and you respectfully request through the Farm Bureau an audience, and you prepare a presentation that goes through what is the history of Prohibition, why was this cannabis plant marginalized in the beginning, what happened in the 40s. If you talk to people in the Midwest about the 40s and World War II, we grew over 135,000 acres of hemp in the Midwest at one point, and Iowa at one point was responsible for 40,000 of those acres, and we grew that because the Japanese took over our one supply of fiber plants, Manila hemp, in the Philippines, and we had to grow our own fiber material for all of our ropes, all of our oil that we used to lubricate our engines. It was famously said that George H. Bush, father, the older one, when he parachuted out, his parachute was made out of hemp, his shoelaces were made out of hemp, the oil that lubricated his engine in the plane that he was flying was lubricated by hemp seed oil. Hemp was vital to the war effort in the 40s, and it was vital for many other countries before that. So if you speak that history, it is a truth. And it's when you speak to farmers in Iowa or across the Midwest, their grandparents grew that hemp. There's still hemp growing, we call it ditchweed. There's still hemp growing across the state in Iowa. So when you talk about education, especially to people that traditionally you don't think would support the legalization of cannabis, if you bring it to them as an agricultural product, and then you bring them all the uses that cannabis can have, and then you show them the story of CBD, which is a great icebreaker for people that have been grazed on prohibition. It is not the only cannabinoid, and it's one thing at Pop on Barkley, we believe in the whole plant, right? So we believe that you need a little bit of THC, a little bit of CBD in most uses of cannabis, and other cannabinoids and terpenes in order to get the full effect. But even that being said, when you're trying to bring people to the other side, meet them where they are. Don't force them to come to where you are. So when you meet them where they are, you talk about CBD. You talk about that it's non-toxic, and you show them and you have them meet. We had some of our families that we worked with come to these town halls and speak with these farmers and meet them and understand how safe this oil was, how it was preventing them from taking much stronger and more harmful pharmaceuticals, and how it was giving, my success story of Harley Kirkpatrick, this woman who had 4 years straight of constant seizures, now is going on 5 years of seizures free. I think she's gone from 2 to 3 seizures a year, maybe. And now she's able to have a much more normal life. I brought her and she met these farmers. And truth is powerful. And personal experience, when you can bring people that doubt things, a real example of a personal experience that worked for someone, and it's someone that they can look at and have empathy for, that's how you educate people. And, we're on the right side of history with cannabis. We're on the right side of history with this plant. This plant was legal for thousands of years more than it was illegal for. We've had 90 years of this experiment of prohibition, and it has been an absolute disaster. Not only has it deprived so many people that needed this medicine over the years, it has deprived us of knowledge. We've had 21st century agricultural techniques that have never, and technologies that have never been applied to cannabis. It has also completely decimated the lives of people. At one point, we were arresting up to 1 million people a year in the war on drugs. Has completely decimated the lives of many, many people just for possession of a plant that our human species has traveled with since the BC era. We have, Chinese artifacts dating back to the BC times of cannabis use. We have hashish cultivation in the early 12th and 13th centuries documented and proven across the Middle East. Cannabis was native to one part of the world, which was the Hindu Kush Mountains, but somehow it grows all across the world. That didn't happen by accident. That's because we traveled with it, because it was so essential to our needs for thousands of years. And so 90 years of prohibition is outweighed by thousands of years of responsible, medicinal, recreational use, what have you. Adult use is not something that we should be prohibiting in this day and age, especially with the amount of information that we have out there. So to answer the question, really, education is important, but you have to meet people where they are, because once you get them just to move an inch, I had farmers move an inch with me on CBD, and then they were all in. They wanted to create hemp plastics, and they wanted to make hemp seed oil, and they wanted to make crushed hemp seed for food markets. They were into it completely once you brought them in just a little bit. And so we had to continue to do that and not always be in people's faces with cannabis use. We have to really, we say the tip of the spear is really that first conversation on cannabis. I think Pop and Barkley, our products are so perfect for that because they're non-aggressive. I can put some topical on you and make you feel better and give you relief. Not get you high, but get you to feel better. That's that first conversation. Once you can break through and do that, then the rest of it is easy. My mother was raised in the Soviet Union and believed that anybody that uses anything like hash or cannabis is a narcoman. He's a narcotic. He's a narcotics addict. Now she uses my balm. She continues to use it, and she requests more and more of it every time she comes and visits me because her arthritis has gotten so bad that it gives her relief, and it's completely changed her mind on cannabis. So that's what we have to continue doing. We're on the side of the truth in this industry, and because of that, I don't want to sound corny, but the truth shall set you free. If you're on the side of truth, then it's easy to convince people to come to your side. One thing that's been incredibly crucial to our growth and to our success has been our commitment to using best-in-class input products. So that's raw cannabis material. We have figured out some great ways to process, infuse, and extract cannabis in solventless ways. But we have to partner with the best farmers that we can and the best growers that use all organic methods, are committed to sustainable and regenerative farming practices, and we have committed ourselves to working only with the farms in what has traditionally been known as the Emerald Triangle. So that's Humboldt County, Trinity County, and Mendocino County. And between the three of them, we're manufacturing in Eureka and Humboldt County. We've purchased from over 200 small farms up there over the last 4 years. When you think about cannabis supply, there's basically small farms that are allowed to grow up to 5,000 to 10,000 square feet on their plots up in the mountains of Humboldt, which is where, in the 60s and 70s when the war on drugs was starting and starting to get very aggressive, this is where people fled to go back to the land and to essentially save the cannabis plant. A lot of the strains that we have now We're thankful to have them because the OGs of the Emerald Triangle went up there and saved these plants and continued to cultivate them, continued to breed them, and continued to bring us the exotic strains that we all love to experience today. So that's why by being up there, we commit ourselves to using sun-grown, organically grown, regenerative farms that supply us with all of our input product material for our wellness products, as well as our high-end extract products under Papa Select. Which are all as well solventless produced through ice water hash and all natural rosin pressing. So all we're doing there is working with the best farmers in Humboldt County, Trinity County, and Mendocino County. We work with them over the year to pheno hunt different strains to find the most ripe trichomes. And what we do is we freeze them right at the farm, right as we're harvesting, bring them to our facility, and use nothing but ice water to separate those trichomes from that plant material and collect it for Papa Select ice water hash. And then we press those trichomes through some rosin socks and some heated plates, and that produces a very beautiful, very terpene-rich oil called Papa Select Live Rosin. So we're very excited about all those products, but they wouldn't be possible without our partnerships with over 200 small family farms up in the Emerald Triangle. So hey, everyone, thank you so much for listening to me and for paying attention and for coming to Immersia Talks. I'm super grateful to the Immersia team for having me and for letting me tell our story to you. Any more information, please follow us on Instagram at Papa and Barkley and at Papa Select, and feel free to reach out anytime you need. Thank you.